Good evening. I'm Jill Fagerlin. Welcome to the 2025 Distinguished Alumni Award Recognition Program. We call them High Flyers. Our 6 honorees are nominated by family, former classmates, friends, and co-workers. These nominations are then handed to the selection committee. That group, which is completely separate from the steering committee, their job is to read the nomination forms and pick around 5 to 6 people that they feel deserve the honor. The nomination forms are on right underneath your place practically, or you can find them on the Faribault District webpage. And anytime you think of somebody, think about honoring them. We have so many people, we have a list, but we're always looking for more people. Now, when we established the Distinguished Alumni Award, it was the purpose to honor graduates of the Faribault High School for notable achievements and contributions through their service activities, extraordinary professional accomplishments, or even volunteer work. By selection for this award, they bring honor and respect to the quality education provided by the Faribault Public Schools, and they inspire our future graduates to achieve high. At this time, I'd like one of our former graduates, Joel Olson, to come up.
Good evening. My name is Joel Olson. I'm the principal at the high school. This is my 3rd year at the high school. A graduate from 1987. Proud alumni, and my wife told me before when I was showing her my speech, she said, "You're not an alumni, that is plural. You're an alumnus." So I'm here in front of my English teachers trying to not make a fool of myself. I've got a few minutes, and I just want to welcome you tonight to our community members, our guests, our parents, our family members, our friends, and especially our distinguished alumni. Thank you for the committee, and thank you for those that work so hard at this every year. This is a tremendous opportunity for all of us to come back together. There are hundreds of people that could have stood up here and shared their memories about this community and our school. For a minute, I'd like you to think about 3 or 4 most influential people in your life growing up. For some, it was our parents or other relatives, people in our neighborhood, teachers and coaches. But I bet at least one of them was a teacher or a coach. Mr. Cleary was my 8th grade social studies teacher. I remember one of our units was on cities, how they work, the government, how they're set up, all of those kinds of things. I don't remember what I got in that class for a grade, but I do remember one piece of information that he shared with us. He said, "Don't you find it ironic that all those small towns are named after their water towers?" And we just kept writing, taking notes. I am a teacher's kid. I grew up around teachers. We lived across the street from our high school assistant principal, Don Larson. Kitty corner was Mr. Strang, our band teacher. I had to transition each summer from calling them by their first names to going back to Mr. and Mrs. We've all developed lifelong friendships in our elementary and junior high, carried those into high school. I played football for Mr. Oliphant, Mr. Tetzloff, and Harvey Schultz, who's here tonight. I was a wrestler for Dave Henry and Doug Augustine. I was in the band with Mr. Wynn and the student council. I took physics so I could go to Valley Fair. I got a B in my dad's sociology class because I was too lazy to do the paper. I know. I struggled in geometry and Mr. Kinney struggled with me. I still do not understand how to do proofs. I was able to take the aquatics instruction class with Terry Schmidt, and those are just some of the people that helped shape me. While we don't remember the scores we got on tests, maybe the homework assignments, or even the grades, except for that B in sociology, we do remember our teachers. I remember the way they showed love to me. I went to Lincoln. I remember the PTA fun run, field days, 5th and 6th grade track meets. Recess in the winters when teachers would help me get dressed and we'd come in from the winter and we couldn't see because our eyes weren't adjusted to the inside. In junior high, I remember making napkin holders in industrial arts, reading The Outsiders in English, experiments in science, taking 1 year of German with Mr. Ingrab. My dad having to send me and my friend to the office because he threw a snowball at me in the classroom. There was no special treatment there. I remember Pep Fest, being in the jazz band, blood drives, dances, and teachers invested in us. All of these memories were created by caring adults and this community. I see some of the people here tonight who have inspired us. From the bottom of my heart, thank you. Thank you for making a difference in the lives of our students. We are a reflection of you. Let's take a moment to give all our educators a round of applause. There's a Greek proverb: a society grows great when old men plant trees in those shade that they'll never sit. Our teachers have planted those seeds in us. They've launched us into the world to explore and follow our dreams. We are blessed to have grown up here. Today we honor our distinguished alumni. You are being recognized for the work that you have done and the difference you have made in this world. Welcome. As I look out to all of you, I see hope, I see pride, and I see all the good in the world. Thank you, and now on with the program.
We have 6 special people to introduce to you this evening. Our format is this. The person who nominated the honoree will introduce them. They know them best. Then the honoree will have a chance to say a few words, probably to defend themselves. You have the booklet in front of you, and that's your homework, because to make you become more familiar with each honoree's many achievements. So be sure and take a look at that. Our first one, I would like to introduce Don and Judy. I'm not sure if both of you are coming up or not. Maisie, would like us to meet their daughter, Jennifer. Will you guys come on up? Is it just you, Judith?
He's a little shy.
Oh, okay. That doesn't matter. Come on up.
Good evening, everybody. I'm Judith, and my husband Donald and I nominated our daughter Jennifer Green, Dr. Jennifer Green, for this award. Jennifer has done a lot of things, but last year, as a Fulbright scholar, I read their mission statement, and it pretty much told me all I needed to know about Jennifer. This is it, in quotes. The Fulbright program aims to bring a little more knowledge, a little more reason, and a little more compassion into world affairs, and thereby to increase the chance that nations will learn at last to live in peace and friendship. And now, I give you my daughter, Dr. Jennifer Green.
Thanks, Mom. And thank you to the award steering committee and the selection committee. These things take so much time and work, and you've done an amazing job, so thank you. I'll start with a few memories from my high school time, and then a little bit about international experiences, and end with a look at teaching. So, it's an honor to be a distinguished alum now, but I was actually rather shy in high school. I had wonderful friends. I enjoyed my classes. I was a cheerleader. I was the mouth percussionist in band. But I actually felt invisible at times. Or at least I felt, I think I was. In 11th grade, I decided to join the jazz band. I played the vibraphone. The fact that you maybe never have heard about a vibraphone tells you that it's not that important of an instrument in the jazz band. But at the end of the year, I reflected on my experience, and I said, you know what? I think my presence is a little irrelevant, and I was really busy with other things. Felt nobody really knew that I was there, so like 20 people were in this group. But I did not return my senior year. I decided to pursue other things. October, November rolls around. My friend Eric calls. Jen, do we have jazz band practice tomorrow morning? I said, I don't know. I haven't been in it all year. See? Invisible. So I get to school, and I'm in independent senior study. And for those of you who remember, that really means seniors in the hallway talking. I look at Chad, also in jazz band, and I tell my story about Eric. He looks confused and says, you were in jazz band last year? So my point was proven. I found it funny then. I find it even funnier now. So although jazz band did not work out for me, I still had wonderful, amazing teachers, fabulous friends, Jen and Carrie are here tonight. And a supportive family. My parents, aunts, uncles, godparents are also here. But I'll also admit that in addition to the amazing teachers, there were some other teachers who I did not appreciate at the time, but I did later on. For example, I was an exchange student in Sweden in 1989 to 1990. And one day I walked into a class and there was a sub. It was the class that was like social studies. And my classmates had ratted me out as the American because the sub said, "Hey, today's topic is on the US, can you teach it?" He goes, "We want to know about the 3 branches of government, the elections, and specifically how the Electoral College works." No notes, no prep. I did it. As soon as I got home, I sat down and wrote a thank you note to my social studies teachers from Faribault. In addition to those teachers that taught me how the US government system works, I had many other great teachers from kindergarten to my senior year. One of my favorite classes in high school was International Issues, taught by Mrs. Freund. Not Mrs. Freund, she's also one of my favorite teachers. I'm looking at her right now. Mrs. Fitzgerald. Our textbook was a weekly issue of U.S. News and World Report. That class gave me a better understanding of what was happening in the world and how everyone was impacted by these different events. And it gave me a window into the world that I've been exploring ever since. So school was really good, and my parents were and are incredible. They did many things right, and one of those was welcoming exchange students into our home. We hosted 4-H'ers from Alaska when I was in elementary school, students from Germany when I was in junior high, and in high school we decided it would be good to host again. So I checked in with Dr. Skuse, who was not only the orchestra director in the high school, he was also a Rotarian. It turned out they needed a family immediately to host a girl, Petra, from Finland. Getting to know her and learning more about exchange programs led me to apply to the Rotary organization to be an exchange student. It was December 1988. I was in the gym watching a basketball game or something, and my parents brought in a large envelope from Rotary. And large envelopes are pretty much always a good thing. So I opened it up, and it said something like, "Congratulations, you've been selected to go to Sweden." And that changed my life. It made me want to be in the world. Living in different countries, first Sweden, then Japan, Ukraine with the Peace Corps, Mexico, and most recently the West Bank and Jordan. This in 2023-24 as a Fulbright scholar, has made me appreciate the diversity of people, different ways of being in the world, communication styles, and trying to learn all those languages. Somehow I picked countries with some of the most difficult languages for English speakers that have different writing systems. Japanese, Ukrainian, Arabic, really? And I want to emphasize the word trying in that. I've not been that successful. Living in Sweden, I experienced life in a country with more gender equality, and I had my appendix taken out there, so I discovered that socialized healthcare can be very good. I also got to explore Europe. At the end of my year as an exchange student, Rotary had a 3-week tour around Europe. Highlights included sitting on top of the Berlin Wall and chiseling off a few pieces, and having our group get a private audience with Pope John Paul II in the Vatican. Japan had a very low crime rate and a strong sense of community. Neither of these, or any country, is a perfect country, but I discovered there are many things that the US can learn from others just as much as we can offer things to them. Living in Ukraine from 1998 to 2000 in the Peace Corps, I experienced watching people emerge from decades under communism. It was messy at times. Now we are watching Ukraine literally fight for their right to be a free and independent nation. My time in the West Bank showed me the struggles of living under occupation, but also of taking pride in one's culture and history, and how community can build strength together in the face of adversity. My husband and I, along with other Fulbrighters, were evacuated to Jordan after the war started between Israel and Hamas. Jordanians showed me wonderful ways to welcome strangers. And so I ended up falling in love with another country. I was invited back there this past November to lead workshops, and I just learned I was selected to be an English language specialist and will work with the U.S. Embassy and a university in Jordan to write curriculum this spring and summer virtually, and then return for a month in August to lead professional development. So my adventures and education in the world continues. If I didn't know Dr. Skuse back then, a teacher and a Rotarian, who knows how my life would have been different. So the world has been one of the best teachers, and I hope all of you had or will have the opportunity to learn from it as well. Having been influenced by many of the teachers here and others in Faribault, I became one back in 1994. I first got my license to be a social studies teacher. See, all those government lessons. But I wanted to get back out into the world, and I left for Japan shortly after graduating from college, and that's where I fell in love with teaching English. So I said, I have to get my master's in teaching English, and I fell in love with grammar. My classmates and I would spend Friday nights treeing sentences and complimenting each other on our use of the third conditional. I found my people. I joined the Peace Corps and taught English in Ukraine, and there I realized I loved working with practicing teachers and helping them to improve their pedagogy. So after teaching grades K through 12 in English as a second language for 7 years in St. Francis, Minnesota, I got my doctorate. And now I prepare teachers and pre-service teachers to teach English to speakers of other languages in Washington State. The class that I teach the most often is the grammar class, How English Works. It's so much fun and hard. Teaching is difficult, but teaching is also very rewarding. So thank you so much to the Faribault Public Schools for giving me the foundation and the models for my work and life.
All right, Gary Kinsett has a unique situation. He has 2 nominators. You must be very special, Gary. One is his brother, Brad, and Brad was so funny. One time yes, another time he said no, but now he said yes. So Brad, come on up.
As Jill said, I'm Gary's younger brother. I used to be a smaller brother, but I'd like to introduce Gary and Terry, his wife, and Andy and his family. My sisters are in the back, Lynn and Pam. I'd like to thank the committee for accepting us. I didn't know Pat was doing it too, otherwise I wouldn't have had to do it. And I want to congratulate all the inductees for tonight. The program has a lot of information about Gary, so I'm not going to go through it all. Pat might go through some of it. But a couple things I just wanted to highlight is 1965, which some of you might remember that. He was on the state runner-up basketball team. Didn't play much because he was behind their 6'10" senior, or center. And he worked at Faribault Foods for 40 years. And he was instrumental in us, Faribault Foods, or back then it was Faribault Canning Company. And then we changed it to Faribault Foods when we got bigger. But he is instrumental in us buying plants in Colorado, Iowa, Wisconsin. And when we first started there, I worked there 42 years still, but I'm not about me. So anyway, when we started there, it was just did peas and corn. And now it's Faribault Foods out in the North Industrial Park, and we don't do any vegetables. In fact, butter kernel vegetables are gone. But anyway, he worked there 40 years, and he was our go-to guy. We didn't do much without his approval. And back in '73, when he was first elected to the council, they didn't call him councilmen, they called him commissioners. And he was in charge of the fire department, the rec department, all city buildings and grounds. And I can remember back in '73 when I was 2 years out of high school, talking to him about improving our fields down at the softball fields. And sure enough, we put another field in there and we moved the lights outside the fence because they used to be in the fence with tires around them, so that wasn't very safe. And he worked hard. He was dedicated to family and Faribault Foods and a candy company, whichever you want to call it. And he worked minimum 70 hours a week. So Pat Rice has some things to talk about on the council side, so I'm not going to do that. But he's sitting right here. His wife Terry's right next to him. So thank you.
Thank you, Brad. I want to also thank the committee, and I know they do a lot of hard work, and it's really a wonderful thing that they have this program. And hopefully we will continue for many years to show off the accomplishments of all our Faribault High School graduates. We really have a lot of successful people. One thing I have to say about Gary, he was one of the graduates who went away to college and then came back. He and Rod are two of those people. And I wasn't from here, I was from North Minneapolis. And I wasn't used to all these people coming back, because then they all played softball and got a nickname. And that seemed to be the place that things were happening in Faribault. He was a true taskmaster at everything he did. He put a lot of hard work into it. You'd often see his car out at the can before hours and after hours. So he really worked hard for stuff. Believe it or not, he brought Faribault Foods from a company of 60 million to 200 million. Think about that and what that did for Faribault. He always had a competitive instinct. I mean, no matter what he did. My first time that I met Gary happened to be playing charades. Do you remember that, Gary? We were at a house party playing charades. Now, most people give a book title or a movie title or something like that. Well, Gary gave him a somewhat bawdy expression telling what a young man should be or do. It ended in a conscience. And for life of me, I couldn't get my crowd to have conscience come up. We just didn't get it, so he was the winner in that. You'll have to ask him what the saying was. He was the mayor and council member for over 30 years. He really actually liked being council member better than mayor, because that was where it was at. You got more stuff done there. And I have to say, I think he made me a better council member because of that. He was a listener. They would put out the topic, and some people would say, oh, you got your mind made up before you even come. Well, you should. If you were studying your council stuff, you probably went to 4 or 5 meetings that talked about the issue before it was ready for a vote. But he'd listen to everybody's comments. Then he'd kind of just coyly sit there and give the last word. And he wanted to make sure by listening to everybody that somebody would agree with him. But he really made council fun. We had a lot of fun laughs and some good people on council. And what you really don't know is Gary's a secretary. And even at the can, they said he'd have his ruler, his calculator, and his red pen. And at City Hall, we lost the minutes of some things. They went to Secretary Kinz's files and they found him because he had the information. So he really did that well. He had all the files. He was also really observant. You family members probably see that too. He notices details. He noticed you got a haircut, you shaved your beard, or you got a new suit or new something. Well, I was out for a while because I had knee surgery. So when I came back, he said, well, you're not walking too bad. None of the other members even said anything, so I appreciated at least that. Gary and I had kind of a running end battle. He was on the Charter Commission. We'd always have to swear, people would swear, and I promised to do my duties that fall upon me. Well, actually, they said the duties that devolve upon me. I like that word, devolve. It kind of says what it was. Well, Gary didn't like it. And so it became duties that fall upon you, or something of that like. But since then, I'm a real reader, and I've seen that word in more books than I can ever tell you about. But there's no more devolved in the thing. Actually, one of the things that I really appreciate about Gary is all that he did for building Faribault. He was involved in the library, the community center, the YMCA, the senior center. And the one that I think of most is, believe it or not, he saved Riverbend Nature Center. I don't know if you remember that, Gary, but years ago, it was dying. There were money troubles. So they locked Gary and Peter Radosevich in a room out there, and they fought it out for the afternoon. And they came out with a plan that really made the Nature Center move forward to be what it is today. Gary's not always a modest guy, you know. He likes to get into it. And one time he didn't do enough advertising of himself. We're at an outdoor event and Gary's up there speaking, and the reporter nudges me and says, "Who is that guy anyway?" I don't know if he was mayor or council member, but the reporter should have known. But I just kind of had to laugh about that. But I really say, you know, Gary, you've really made a difference in Faribault. I think anybody who knows you can say that, and that's a wonderful legacy to have. You've cared about Faribault, about your family, about Faribault foods, and you've really made that big difference, and I think you're a very much deserving high flyer. So congratulations.
And coming up for Gary, we have Andrew.
All right, so my name's Andy Herda. Gary's my stepdad. I've been lucky enough for Gary to be in my life since I was 2 years old. I tell people I'm lucky enough to have two dads. Gary's also my best friend. 6 years ago, Gary had a major stroke, and our whole lives changed. But we're still fortunate to have him here every day, to granddaughters to cuddle into bed, and Gary's, if you know Gary, he's a cuddler, so that's that. So now I'm tasked with coming up here and thanking you on his behalf. And I look at this room, and this is what Gary worked for. Community, connections, people, roots, amenities. Everything he did was in hopes of me living here, his grandkids living here, bettering our community. It's what I do now. It's enjoyable to see all these old teachers. Mrs. Gilbertson, Mrs. Balkin, who just passed away, was Gary's teacher. She was my teacher. She was probably many of your teacher. It's pretty neat when we can have that. Many of us talking about Ruth and Lyle and just all the teachers that we've had participate in who we are today. Growing up, I just knew Gary was a workaholic, right? That's a term that we had back in the 80s, 90s, and maybe even today, a workaholic. Always at a meeting. Every night there was another board, another commission, always at a meeting. We never knew what time dinner was going to be. Obviously, City Hall's phone didn't work, and cell phones weren't around, so we just sat and waited and waited and waited for Gary, and we knew the meeting was over. But when you have Pat and Harley and Kay and Jeanette and Tim and John, and all the names would just change as the decades changed. Imagine thousands of meetings, and then every meeting another hour of just talking, right? Because those were his clan, that was his group, and there wasn't a committee that he wasn't on. He wouldn't fess up to the committees because he would come home from a meeting and we're like, okay, now what committee did you add at this meeting? And it would usually take a couple of weeks before he would admit to it. I recently just found out he was the library director for a short time. Tim Madigan put him in charge because they needed a library director. So, but don't worry, Gary had a hobby. His hobby, if you ask Gary, was city politics. That's my hobby. I don't need to do anything else. Keeps me busy. And if you workaholic, I'm talking Saturday, go to the office, come home, sit on the chair, do more work, Sunday wake up, but he enjoyed it. At Gary's retirement ceremony, or whatever you want to call it, he said something like he never had a bad day of work. And you can't believe that, but it was something to that order, where he found little things to enjoy, whether it was that coworker, whether it was the growth of Faribault Foods that provided many jobs in our community, or city politics. Yeah, I didn't realize until I became older how proud Gary is of Faribault. And by serving on all these that's how he showed his love for this community. It's pretty special. About a year ago, I asked Gary if he had any regrets or advice to share with us, and he said he should have said yes more. And all I could think is, what committee did he not sign up for? But I think those are good words. In a blink of an eye, your whole life can change. Go while you can go, because all of a sudden, in a blink of an eye, here we are, and life changed. So everybody, just get out there and live your best life and travel and do all those things that make you smile. So we'd like to thank everybody that's here, everybody that participates in our community. We need that to continue this community. It's a pretty special thing we have, and this room is testimony to that. So thank you. Appreciate it.
Shouldn't give me the mic. I can go on forever. Hey, ladies and gentlemen, good evening. It's my great honor to have nominated Mr. Rod Mahler for the Distinguished Alumni Award. But before I introduce to you, and many of you already know Rod so well, I want to congratulate all the other awardees this evening, as well as to thank the steering committee for all their hard work in putting this important event on. I think it's a remarkable event to celebrate the graduates of Faribault High School. So Rod is a 1951 graduate of Faribault High School. To put that a little, right, you should clap your hands. 1951, to put it a little bit of a historical perspective, the President of the United States was Harry S. Truman. So Rod was busy in high school, and you'll see in your program he was an athlete, he was involved in music, and he was a writer for the school newspaper, and he did a sports column, kind of a la Sid Hartman, but before Sid Hartman's time, called Locker Room Lingo with Rod. Now, honestly, don't you think that could be the name of a podcast today? I think it very much could be. And, but more importantly, Rod, as a senior, the staff and the administration at the high school awarded him with, I gotta see if I can get the name right, the All-School Service Cup. Now, it was a paper award, it wasn't actually a cup. But what it was a recognition of Rod's devotion to service, and he of his classmates was selected to be that, a real foreshadowing of his life to follow. He went on to Hamlin University, graduating in 4 years with a degree in business administration. Again, really active, playing all kinds of sports. He was a player captain for the tennis team, 4-year letter winner, award winner. He was involved in student government, and he graduated with distinction from Hamlin. After graduating from Hamlin, he went into, he did his military service, serving 3 years in the Army, 1.5 years in the United States, and then with his new bride, Jean, moved to Heidelberg, Germany, and completed his military service. Following the completion of his military service, he moved back to Faribault. He and Jean, and and Rod started working with his parents, Ruth and Don, in Mahler Hardware Store, which was founded in Faribault in 1934. Rod worked there and took over from his parents in 1964. So think about that, ladies and gentlemen. 1964, Rod had just come back not too long ago from Germany, out of the service. He's married, he's started a young family, and honestly, his kids, David, Heidi, and Gail, all could be right up there on that wall, and someday they will be fabulously successful people, and which is a real testament to Rod and to Jean for the family they raised. But 1964, Rod's got a young family. He's just taken over the store. You know, that's enough to keep somebody busy, right? I mean, that's a lot to do, to handle and to be able to keep going, but not Rod. He got involved in this community. I went through all the different committees he was on, all the different commissions. He was in the chamber. He was on the Faribault Planning Commission. He was part of some citizens committees to expand the hospital, to attract in a vocational school, to try to get in a community college into Faribault. He was a huge fundraiser for the United Way. And all these different things attracted attention. And he was, in 1970, selected as one of 10 outstanding young men in the state of Minnesota. And, you know, it was a real testament to his involvement in Faribault, in our community. And after all, ladies and gentlemen, isn't that what we want the graduates of our high school to be? Of course they're going to try to make themselves and their families better off. But let's hope that they also strive to get involved in the community, make that community a better place, make the state a better place, and hopefully as well as the country to be a better place to live. And I think Rod really throughout his life has epitomized that. And I failed to mention that he's a 67-year member of the Rotary. He was president in 1972, and maybe someday he'll share some of his Rotary stories with them. My favorite is the visit of the famous actress Angie Dickinson to a Rotary meeting a long time ago, but I'll leave that story to Rod because he tells it so well, if he will tell it. But ladies and gentlemen, please join me in congratulating Rod Mahler for this distinguished award, and thank you, Rod, very much for everything you've done for this town and city. Thank you very much.
To Jill Fagerland and all the people in your committee, I want to especially thank you for doing all the work in making this evening possible and making so many people here happy with your selections. To all the honorees tonight, congratulations for such a well-deserved honor. I am so honored to be here with all of you. To David Sauer, I shall forever be indebted to you for the nomination, especially from one of last year's outstanding winners. Thank you, David. Faribault High School is where my life completely changed. With teachers like Miss Jones in 7th grade, Ted Esterbrook in social studies, Miss Williams in world history with her maps and pointer stick, Carl Reinke in biology and his wife in English, Lawrence Knudsen in algebra, John Hillsberg in shop where I learned how to hammer, saw, and sand, Oscar Teisberg in band and orchestra, where after my first concert, he met me afterwards and congratulated me on my fine gum-chewing performance. Marjorie Hoagnander Silva's choir director, where I learned how to harmonize and appreciate all different kinds of music. James Warren, homeroom and social studies teacher and tennis coach. Ralph Lusinger, my football coach. And last but not least, Lefty Ellingson, our principal, who you learn to respect and to behave. There were many more teachers that you were proud to know. They dressed for respect every day. While in 7th grade, I went to the Paradise Theater one Sunday afternoon while they had continuous movies that you could attend. I went to see Elizabeth Taylor and Mickey Rooney in National Velvet. She was 1 year older than me, and I was so enamored with her that I stayed for 3 movies. Later that week, I mailed a letter to her at MGM Studio, Hollywood, California. That's the only address I knew. And about 6 weeks later, I got an envelope with an 8x10 picture signed, "Your friend Elizabeth." I took the picture and put it on the inside of my locker, and then one day, one of the members of the Echo school paper took my picture next to it, and I was in the school paper. I have no idea what had happened to that picture. Well, finally, when I was a junior, an experience happened that would completely change my life. It started with the first football game of the season when we played LeSueur at home on Bruce Smith Field. This was the second year the field was in use. Previously, we played our games at Tipitanka. I was excited because Bruce Smith had been my idol growing up, and I had kept a scrapbook on him when he was at the U. I had made the starting lineup, and just before halftime, the score was 0-0, and they had the ball on the 10-yard line. We held them on all 4 downs, except I was offside. They had another try and made a touchdown, score 6-0 LeSueur. Final score of the game, 6-0. I was devastated. In those days, we rode the bus from school down to Bruce Smith Field, dressed in the field house, and after the game, we showered and dressed and rode the bus back to school. Well, I was so upset that I walked back. In those days, after a game, kids met down at the ice cream store, which is located where Burkertsmeyer Shoe Repair Shop is today. When I walked in, Bill Hansen, one of the captains, pulled me over and said, "Hey," he said, "I'm going to the movies tomorrow night with Carol Alvinus," and wanted me to go along. He said that Sterling girl was interested and I should ask her. I said, "Who is that?" And he pointed her out sitting in a booth with some of her sophomore girlfriends, like Barb Morris Rust over there. I waited for a while and asked Bill for her first name, and he said it was Jean. So finally I went over to her booth and I had said, "Are you Jean?" And she said yes. And then I told her Bill and Carol were going to the movie the next night and would she be interested in going with me. She looked at me, hesitated, and then said yes. I asked where she lived, and we would pick her up at 6:30. We went to the Paradise and saw the movie Mighty Joe Young. From that day forward, we started going together. 6 years later, she became Mrs. Mahler. My life changed all because I was offside at a football game. Fast forward, and we were very fortunate to have 3 wonderful children, David, Heidi, and Gail, who all graduated from Faribault High School and so far have provided us with 9 grandchildren and 12 great-grandchildren. The last one was just born 2 days ago. How proud I am. Thank you.
Mary Duzlavic didn't know our next honoree that well in high school. But at their 30th high school reunion, you were really old by then, right? I can say that because I'm really, really old. She found out what Drew had been up to. She was very impressed, and for that reason, she went ahead and nominated him. So come on up and introduce us to Drew.
First of all, thank you to you, Jill, and to the steering committee and the selection committee. I think this High Flyers event is wonderful, a great way to honor our high school classmates. So, welcome Drew and family from all over the place. Thank you for coming. I met my classmate Drew Sandy at our 30th class reunion. Class reunions bring together old high school friends to reminisce about teenage years, rekindle friendships, and share life updates. But Drew and I were never friends in high school, and although we knew of each other and perhaps shared a hello in the hallway, we didn't know each other. Back in high school, it seemed we had little in common. We were in different friend groups, had different interests and extracurricular activities and hobbies. Needless to say, our paths didn't cross very much or even at all. Today, we live on opposite sides of the country. He in Virginia and me in Arizona. Thank goodness for social media. And although we are miles apart, it seems our worlds have become a bit more common and connected. The years have brought us both many blessings, wonderful marriages, healthy and happy children, great adventures, including a common love of sailing. When we met at our 30th reunion and began to talk, I learned that Drew had just retired from a lifetime service as a Navy SEAL. Wow. This truly piqued my interest, as my life's journey seemed much more traditional and paled in comparison. I remember our conversation that evening, and as I began to ask a lot of questions about being a Navy SEAL, Drew seemed a bit hesitant and jokingly asked, "Are you a reporter?" To which I quickly responded, "No, but if you tell me anything, will you have to kill me?" For some reason, I felt an instant connection and my curiosity grew. Drew eventually shared a small bit of intel, and after additional research, I discovered a much bigger and more elaborate picture of his life story as a Navy SEAL. After graduating in 1980, Drew chose to leave Faribault and begin a new life by enlisting with the Navy. After boot camp, he specialized in turbine engines and was assigned to the USS Fox, a guided missile cruiser. A few years later, as his term was coming to an end, his friend was planning to try out for the Navy SEALs. He encouraged Drew to do the same. Needless to say, his friend didn't make the team, but Drew did. He graduated Class 133 in July 1985. He was assigned to SEAL Team 4 in Little Creek, Virginia, which specialized in underwater demolition. Drew completed 3 deployments to South America and the Mediterranean. He then participated in Operation Just Cause in Panama in December 1989. This operation was highly sensitive and involved President George H.W. Bush and President General Noriega of Panama. Although the operation was successful and Noriega was kept at bay, there were casualties within SEAL Team 4, and Drew lost some of his comrades. Even though none of us will ever know the details of the operation, Drew was eventually selected and awarded SEAL Team 4 Sailor of the Year 1989. So he obviously played a huge role in the success of Operation Just Cause. As his Navy career continued, not only was he a Navy SEAL, but he decided to advance his education by earning an associate's degree and eventually working towards an MBA. During his career, he was assigned to additional SEAL teams, SEAL Team 1 in San Diego, as leading Chief Petty Officer for deployments in the Pacific, and SEAL Team 10 on the East Coast as leading Chief Petty Officer for Operation Iraqi Freedom. In addition, he was involved in the Joint Special Ops Task Force in Afghanistan as a liaison for government agencies. He was liaison to the Commanding General of Special Ops Command for South America. He worked for the Admiral's staff in Coronado, California, which to me is very impressive, as Officer of Research and Development, and was instrumental in providing $13 million worth of protective equipment to over 2,000 Navy SEALs. He also worked as part of the Naval Special Warfare Advanced Training Command until his retirement. I am no doubt omitting many details of his amazing career and many advancements. I'm sure if I were to ask Drew what is the most important part of his exceptional career, he would respond that being married 30 plus years to Colleen and having daughter Christina tops them all. And we all know that our spouses and family play a huge role in supporting our careers and helping us to be the best we can be. Drew and Colleen were present for the dedication of the Naval Combat Demolition Units in Omaha Beach, Normandy, France, super cool, in 2024, in my opinion. Drew continues his involvement with the Navy SEALs by donating his time with the SEALs Veterans Foundation and other organizations. He's given to our country a lot, and I greatly appreciate your service, Drew. It is my incredible honor to recognize inductee, my classmate, and my new friend, Drew Sandy, for the Faribault Falcon Distinguished Alumni Award. That's a lot.
That is really nice, Mary. I can't believe. I mean, you know my career better than I do. Somebody was talking about the Riverbend Nature Center. I had the opportunity to take my wife Colleen and Christina, my daughter, up there today. What a beautiful day in Faribault. Oh my gosh! We went walking. Our daughter went running. But I remember growing up on those trails with my brother Dylan and my brother Desmond, who are here. And I'm so proud that Nature Center is still alive, and those trails are so beautiful, and that river was raging, and it was brought up a lot of really good childhood memories back in the day. My pre-teen days, actually, we grew up, on those trails. But anyway, so to get started, I'm in the final month of my second career on the technical side of special operations stuff. And I was starting to feel all washed up, has been, hung out to dry, what am I going to do next? And then something like this happens. I get contacted by Mary Duzbaba Gunther, and she's like, Drew, guess what? I want to nominate you for this Alumni Award. And I'm like, oh my gosh, what an incredible honor this is, Mary, and I truly appreciate your thoughtfulness and the time you took to submit it and everything, and your introduction. Thank you very much. Thank you. I would also like to thank the Alumni Committee for a job well done. This is awesome. I never even knew it existed, but I see all the important people that have been recognized, and then also the people tonight that have been recognized and are getting inducted into the alumni. Awesome. Well done, everybody. Thank you. My family. I appreciate my family. Unfortunately, my parents are deceased, but I have my mother's two brothers here, Bob and Jerry, and their family, Dawn and their children, my cousins, Dana and Doug, Doug's wife Denise and their son Jake, my cousin Cindy, my brother Desmond, his wife Terry, and my little brother Dylan, and of course my beautiful daughter and my beautiful wife Colleen. Thank you for being here. I can only imagine J.B. Warren, our principal back then, and my parents looking down at us right now in shock. Look at that. Can you believe that? That mess of a student, getting recognized. I could just see it. I can hear him now. They thought it would be a good idea for me to get into the vocational work program in high school. So my junior year, I left at lunchtime and went to work at Goodyear Tire Company, and I was promoted up to the farm service rep. So that's what I did in my junior year. I went to work in high school, and I got to go out and meet a lot of nice farmers, change their tractor tires, and it was a good time. So then flash forward to the senior year, I went on to work at 7-Up Bottling, and I was the foreman for the crew that when they brought the pop trucks back, we would reload the pop trucks for the next day, so anyway, that was a lot of my high school. That's probably why we never crossed paths, Mary. I was working. School wasn't my thing. I struggled in school. I knew I couldn't go to college. I could have went to college, but it would have been a waste of money. So I was looking for alternatives, and J.B. Warren and my parents helped me figure that out. They kind of pushed me. I said I wanted to join the Navy, and my dad said, "Where do I sign?" So that's how it all started. It was the best thing for me at the time of my life. And, they were a big influence in that. Actually, my dad signed the papers when I was a junior in high school in 1979. So he spent 2 years in the Army right around Korea. And, I can remember growing up, going over to Grandma's house, and his sea bag was in the attic. So we used to pull out his Army clothes, and I used to wear them as a teenager, running around the neighborhood. I thought I was a cool kid. But anyway, so that probably helped me influence my decision to get into the military. So there I was. As some of you classmates might remember, I had a 1970 Ford Econoline van in high school. I don't know, it was a baby blue, custom. I don't know what my dad was thinking buying me that thing, but it was, I thought I was a hot stuff driving around that thing. We made many country road scenics to many big parties in that thing, so I'm lucky to be alive, actually. So then again, that's what I'm saying. My parents and the principal are ultimately responsible for my joining the military, and I think it was the right decision. So as Mary alluded to, my first tour was on a guided missile cruiser, USS Fox CG-33 out of San Diego, California. A crew of about 300 people. We did a Western Pacific deployment at the time, more peacekeeping missions than anything then. So we went to places like Hawaii, the Philippines, Australia, Pakistan, and we would do patrols and train and all that stuff over there. President Reagan was the president then. He was building a 600-ship Navy, and life was really good for this young sailor. So then I was coming up on my 4-year enlistment. I'm wondering, okay, what do I want to do next? I just received like a 13% pay raise from President Reagan. He was building up the Navy, and I said, life's looking good here, so maybe I should stay. And then one afternoon, I was on duty, and a guy that was super fit checked aboard, and I brought him down to his berthing compartment and asked him where he came from. And he had just quit SEAL training, rang the bell, and that's what they do when you quit. They send you to a ship. So I just happened to be on duty that day, and when he said that SEAL training, I'd never heard of it, never heard of a SEAL. This was 1984. So back then, nowadays it's pretty common. You see it, there's movies, there's books, there's everything else. But back then, you never heard of a SEAL. They were not that popular. They were popular in Vietnam. Actually, the first 2 SEAL teams were commissioned in 1962. So, so not that popular. So I'm like, SEALs, you got to swim. I grew up in lakes in Minnesota. I Cedar Lake, we had a place up there. Me and my brothers, we'd be out there swimming every weekend, and I can swim, so I'm going to give it a shot. So he motivated me. He showed, for the next couple of months, he prepared me for training. So then, at the end of that enlistment, I went home. It was Christmas time, 1984, and there was a lot of snow on the ground. It was ice, cold, and I was taking ice cold showers in my parents' basement to prepare because I was getting ready to go to SEAL training. I knew that, one thing he said is the water's cold, so I would take ice cold showers in the basement and go for runs in 2 feet deep snow, thinking that would help me get through training. So then I start training in January of '85, and our Hell Week, that's the period of time where you don't get any sleep for 5 days, it was in February. So that was probably the coldest. That week I spent in Minnesota doing all that nonsense, it didn't help at all. It was brutally cold. It was miserable. And, that's when I learned about the only easy day is yesterday. You just take it a day at a time, and, if you can get through the crap today, you're going to be fine, because, so take it one day at a time. So that intervention with that guy, Frank Farino, started off the next 22 years of my life. So I made it through training. Like Mary said, I graduated with Bud's class 133 in July of 1985. Actually, we're going to Fort Pierce, Florida for our 40th class reunion in November. If you haven't been to the museum, the SEAL Museum, it's really something to see if you're interested in history and stuff. And our predecessors from before the SEAL teams, we had underwater demolition teams, naval combat demolition units, and then scouts and raiders dating back to World War II. So yeah, it's something to see if you ever get down to Florida and Fort Pierce. But anyway, we're going down there for our 40th, so we'll get our helmets back on and we'll run around and sing songs and do all the crazy stuff we did. Should be fun. So, one thing I want to say up front before I start, my tour and the SEAL teams, being a SEAL is pretty easy. Being married to a SEAL is the hard part. My wife, there's no tougher job in the military than that of a spouse or, a child of a service member. Colleen had to take command of our home through many years of my absence. Her first taste of it when we were dating back in 1989, and I disappeared with no notice for Operation Just Cause in Panama right before Christmas. She and good friends, she was with good friends when the news hit that 4 SEALs were killed in action and several were wounded on the airfield, December 19th, 1989. My 8-man squad leader, John Connors, was killed in action that night. Rick Asherman and Tony Ducci were both shot. Those memories never leave you. In fact, John's classmates, family and friends are honoring his legacy with a statue of him to be dedicated in his hometown of Skitchewa, Massachusetts in the coming year. I'm honored to be a part of that tribute for such an elite patriot. And, another small tidbit of that story is when John was killed in action, he has a really nice Catholic family. His mother's still alive. There was 5 kids. Well, his brother committed suicide after he was killed in action. So talk about a heartbreaking story. Anyway, so it's really an honor to be a part of that family tribute. I would like to dedicate this honor for me to my wife Colleen and my daughter Christina and the countless teammates and their families that have paid the ultimate sacrifice serving our great nation. Cheers. Thank you. So after spending 5, I'm just going to talk a little bit about my career. If I get bored, just throw something at me and I'll step away. But so after spending 5 years at SEAL Team 4, the challenge itch hit me again. So I screened, interviewed, and completed 6 more months of next level intense training and was accepted to the Naval Special Warfare Development Group, Red Squadron. Those 3+ years were packed full of the best operational experiences of my life. I knew Colleen was getting interested in my career at this point. And the guys thought she was kind of cool, so I asked her to marry me. So we got married in 1992. She knew my new command was on a 3-hour standby cycle, and when the pager went off, it was time to go to work on a no-notice operation. Yet she accepted and has been by my side ever since. That command would test our ability to execute routinely. We would load the team up, sometimes with boats, fly away and drop into some unknown drop zone in the middle of the night to take down a high-value target, rescue innocent hostages, or just prepare the environment for the next large-scale operation. That tour opened my eyes to the Joint Special Operations Enterprise and how dynamic and reliant we are on each of our services special operations forces. What a treat that was for me. The best shape of my life, working alongside the most elite group of professionals on the planet. I can assure you that outfit is deployed around the globe executing our nation's most sensitive activities right now. So from there, we thought we needed a break. So I signed up for a college program and went off and got my associate's degree. What I didn't know at that time is they took your special pays away, all your jump pay, dive pay, and all that stuff. So I had to make ends meet, so I went and got a part-time job at a Holiday Inn as a bellman. So I thought I was hot stuff with my little uniform on and going to pick up the pilots and stuff at the airport and carrying their bags for them. And anyway, it was one hot summer afternoon, and I remember Colleen pulling up to the Holiday Inn in tears after I'd been gone for so many years, that she couldn't believe I was working on a weekend, and so needless to say, I gave that up pretty quickly and found other ways to make ends meet. Okay, so the next assignment was a beautiful experience there. The next assignment, after you get a good deal college assignment, like that, the detailer wants a piece of you. So he gave me orders to the West Coast. After we just got married, we just bought a house, we just fixed it up. Colleen had a great job, and we had orders to the West Coast. We didn't want to go to the West Coast, but he force detailed us out there. He needed platoon chiefs at SEAL Team 1. So I'm like, you don't have any chiefs on the West Coast? There's 4 SEAL teams out there, But anyway, yeah, that's what happens when you get a good deal, like college. So anyway, we went out there, and fortunately, Colleen's family's from South Philadelphia. She's an East Coast girl, by the way. But fortunately, we enjoyed our time, our 6 years out in San Diego. And Colleen continued her career as a network engineer, building her career up. And I was gone preparing I had 2 more platoons, 16-man platoons. We made 2 deployments, 6-month deployments to Guam. So I was gone again for the next 4 or 5 years. Fortunately, to help Colleen out, Colleen's mother wanted to come out and visit, and so she came out and spent some time and ended up staying with us for a few years out there. I'll never forget, Maureen was her name. She would, we were living in Coronado, California, which is a very nice place to live. You could walk to the senior center. So she would get out of our condo, walk up to the senior center. She could do that year-round. She grew up in Philadelphia, so you couldn't do that year-round up there. Anyway, so it was a real honor to have her there, especially when our daughter, Christina, was born April 5th in 2000 in Coronado. So I was leaving SEAL Team 1, 2 deployments, nothing really eventful. We did, a lot of cross-training, with different forces around the Pacific. I left SEAL Team 1, I went into the Admiral's headquarters at Naval Special Warfare Command in 2000. I thought that would be my final tour in the Navy. I would do 2 years there and retire with 22 years in. Well, then what happened on 9/11, that changed everything, and coincidentally they commissioned 2 new SEAL teams in 2002, just when I thought I was going to retire. So I didn't think it would be a good idea to retire. I thought it'd be a better idea to go back to the East Coast and commission SEAL Team 10. So I spent 2 years there as a troop chief. Oh, well, before I went to see, we packed, Christina was 2 years old, so we packed her up. We had a 96 Explorer. We put a car seat in the back of that, back seat, and it was packed to the gills. And we had a little 13-inch TV, 8-track TV we could put Blue's Clues in, so we'd go for about 6 hours. It was a hoot. It was a month-long trip across country, but we had a hoot. I wish she was old enough to remember that. But we'd stop every 6 hours, get a hotel, and swim, and we saw Grand Canyon and stopped at a lot of different places. It was really nice. So game on. The military became very busy over the next 20 years, and I was a troop chief. Master Chiefs assigned to SEAL Team 10. You know, on that deployment, the CIA liaison in Afghanistan, up there on the Afghan-Paki border in 2003. After that, in 2005, Force Protection liaison for 6 SEAL platoons. President Bush actually requested to protect the top 6 government officials in Iraq. That was one of those no-fail missions at the time. The president actually, after we were done, President Bush flew down to Virginia Beach and thanked the SEAL teams for, you know, not letting him down, which is, I thought, very cool. So in closing, I know I've been here probably 10 minutes by now, but my 2 most humbling, proudest moments of service were being called to action by a teammate's wife, Rhonda. Her husband, Jeff Lucas, was killed in action in 2005 during the lone survivor rescue attempt. She told me I was his favorite platoon chief and asked me to escort his body home. I was in Iraq at the time and had immediate command support to honor her wish. Let me tell you something. There are plenty of professionals in our military, but none more than the men and women that receive and prepare the bodies of our fallen up at Dover, Delaware Air Base. Unbelievable. Delivering Jeff's casket to the funeral home and dropping off his personal effects to his widow and their 1-year-old son was by far the most humbling experience of my life. But equally humbling was after that. I was still in my dress blues. I stopped by pre-kindergarten to surprise Christina after being away for 3 months. There's nothing more satisfying than the unconditional love a child has at that age. She ran up to me yelling, "Daddy, Daddy, Daddy," and gave me the biggest hug of my life. That, my friends, family, and classmate, is the biggest reward of them all. Thank you.
Jason Tanko also had 2 nominators.
Good evening, everyone. It's amazing to be here in Faribault celebrating the diverse achievements of all of our alumni. I also want to say thanks to the committee, of course, and then those who have served and are serving our country. So let's give a round of applause again. Tonight, I have the joy of introducing an inductee who has been a constant source of inspiration for me. He's developed into a truly exceptional artist, and I couldn't be prouder. From his early days of sketching in the woods, Riverbend Nature Center, bringing home wood ticks and unusual things for us in nature to fry up and eat, to his musical adventures in smoky bars, his journey has been quite unique and admirable. His love of nature ultimately led him to where he is today, receiving national recognition, having his works exhibited across the U.S., including prestigious venues like the C.M. Russell Museum in Montana. It's a big deal. The Wall Street Journal calls it one of America's premier Western art museums. He's been honored as the featured artist at top-tier art events like the Southeastern Wildlife Expo in Charleston, Nature Works in Tulsa. Most recently, his journey has been highlighted in Art of the West magazine. His pieces are catching the eye of art enthusiasts who are excited to add them to their collections, specifically the Uline collection. Their name may sound familiar because they're a major distributor of shipping, industrial, and packaging materials. Maybe they delivered the paper towels to the bathroom. In addition, he finds time to share his expertise with aspiring artists through workshops and mentorship. Not only is he a remarkable artist with impressive accomplishments, which is why I nominated him, but he's also a loving husband, incredible father to their 5 children. He's also a pretty awesome big brother, even though he did get me kicked out of the Faribault West Mall once. Anyway, I'm super nervous, but I'm thrilled to present to you the exceptionally talented Jason Tanko.
I want to thank everyone and say, yes, that is a tough act to follow. So nobody told me I was going to be following a Navy SEAL in my talk here. And everyone else here, some incredibly tough acts to follow. But I want to thank the committee. I want to thank my sister and Gary Sarter, who I just learned this evening also nominated me. So Gary and I were in high school together, homeroom, Mr. Temple's class, I believe. He taught some kind of industrial, he built radios or something. I can't remember exactly. Some of you guys might remember. But and Gary and I used to kind of chide each other a little bit once in a while, but he was a good guy, so I want to thank him as well. And to be recognized by the very school where my journey began, right here in Faribault, it's both very humbling and very meaningful. I was part of the class of 1990, and it's been a few years since then, but I can still vividly remember moments that shaped me, some artistic and some a little more colorful. One that comes to mind was in 9th grade in Julie Knapp's class, and Julie is here tonight. I got to see her for the first time since 9th grade, which has been a long time. And in Julie's class, I'm not sure if you remember this, but we were working with acrylic paints, the kind with those giant gallon containers with the big pump on top. And I went up to the light sky blue, and I wanted to get some on my palette, and it wasn't coming out, and it was kind of clogged, and I was an impatient, 9th grader. So instead of gently working it, I punched the top about as hard as I could, and instead of a gentle squirt, the paint shot out at a perfect 90-degree angle, and it landed on a classmate's pink dress that she was wearing for a special play that evening. Her name is Amy, and wherever you are, I apologize again. And I remember she was not too happy about that, and I don't think Julie was either. And I can't remember what happened after that exactly. Probably don't want to, and don't even know what the painting turned out, but it was an unforgettable moment, to be sure. Julie was an incredible art teacher. She didn't just let us experiment, she guided us. And in that same class, she showed us a simple illustration technique that I still use to this day. And I learned it in her class, which was really awesome. In fact, I was just using it last week. The first drawing I used it in, it won second place in a statewide competition. And it was then that it was kind of a turning point for me, where I realized that this could be more than maybe just a hobby. Back then, I also spent a lot of time wandering the woods and wetlands around Shieldsville, sketchbook in hand. I would sketch the trees, the birds, the changing light. It was quiet out there and it was peaceful. And I bring those drawings to Mr. Eugene Larson, our senior high art school teacher. And he was always very generous with his time. And I remember, the way he would look at my sketches and give me encouragement. And, he seemed to have a belief in what I could do, as well as Julie. So that really stuck with me. But as you know, life doesn't always take a straight course. I became a musician. In my senior year, I stopped painting and drawing altogether, and I picked up a bass guitar at the behest of some friends. They're like, hey, we're forming a band, we need a bass player. Sounded kind of cool, girls like that. And so I thought, that might be neat to do. So I started doing music. And I went to Music Tech in Minneapolis at the time, and then it became Ram McNally School of Music. It's no longer in existence, sadly, but I graduated top in my class, even though I was playing less than anybody in my class. And then I started playing in bands all around southern Minnesota. And it was a creative life, just a different kind of creative life. And in the late 90s, something pulled me back. I kind of was missing the quietness of the woods that I went into when I was a child, or as a teenager. And I bought a sketchbook again and returned back to the same woods and wetlands in Shieldsville where I grew up. Sadly, the store there, if you remember the Shieldsville store, love that place, and it just got torn down last couple of years, right? I think. But those are some incredible memories.
And I also used to walk the trails a lot when I still lived here at the Riverbend Nature Center. And I want to thank Mr. Kinseth directly for, I just understand tonight that he saved that in a certain way. And that place was an incredible inspiration for me. And I still try to get up there whenever I get back to visit that. And I slowly, as I went into the woods, I started drawing again. And my new classroom and my new teacher was nature itself. And so I would obsessively sketch as often as I could. I'd go to stores on my lunch break and sketch people and really freak them out. But, you know, I needed a subject, so. Today, I'm a professional artist who paints historical Native American subjects and Western landscapes. And my work has been exhibited across the country, from museums in Montana, as my sister indicated, to galleries in the Southwest. But I never forget where it started. It started with teachers like Julie Knapp, Eugene Larson, and also I want to recognize Phyllis Handorf, my third grade teacher who is here. And I still assert that I was probably her worst student that she ever had, but thankfully I think she's forgiven me. But you know, all this started with encouragement, with messy art rooms at Quiet Woods, you know, in and around Faribault. It started with people who saw something in me even before I saw it in myself. I also want to segue a little bit back to 4th grade. This was in Peace Lutheran School, where I went from 4th to 8th grade. There was a teacher named Gail Schrupp, I believe her name. It's funny how the names sometimes leave you as time goes on. And she had drawn a Corpiconia, I believe it's called, on the chalkboard. And she wanted all of us to copy it, and mine ended up turning out best in the class. And that was another time where it's like, wow, I might be able to actually do something because I can't do anything else. So, I want to thank also 2 people who are constant sources of support in my life, my mom and dad, who are here. They never pushed, but they always encouraged me to follow my creative instincts. Whether it was letting me disappear into the woods with a sketchbook, I would tell my mom there'd be a blizzard outside, and I'd be like, I'm going to go out, I'll be back later. And she would miraculously let me go. And I did make it back always. You know, they also supported my decision to go to music school, and their quiet backing gave me space to explore. I also want to thank my beautiful wife, Becky, and our 5 children. While they could not be here tonight due to the baseball season, they've always supported and loved me through times of extreme challenge. And when you are an artist, I know you said about being a Navy SEAL, the wife goes through a lot. They do a little bit when you're an artist too. Just she didn't have to worry about me not coming home alive, but unless I'm following grizzly bears. But you know, it's not always a steady path when you're being an artist, financially, career-wise, and that. But they've always been there through extreme challenge and success, and I could never have made it this far without their support. I also want to give thanks to God for everything I have and I'm grateful to be included among the alumni being honored tonight. Looking back, the lessons I carry with me weren't just artistic. They were about encouragement, persistence, and the importance of community. The blue paint mishap, it taught me to laugh, and hopefully Miss Knapp is still laughing about it too. The statewide drawing competition, it gave me a spark, as did some other, you know, things that I mentioned. And the long walks in the Riverbend Nature Center out around Shieldsville with the sketchbook, that taught me how to see. Thank you again for this award. This award is an honor to represent Faribault Senior High and to say that this is where my journey truly began. Thank you.
Our 6th honoree is a name that you might recognize. It's a Meyer family. They're in the doctor field, I believe, right? Introducing Nancy is Nancy Johnson.
Good evening. Public speaking is one of my least favorite things to do, but for Nancy, I'm here. Tonight, I have the pleasure of introducing my dear friend and classmate from the class of 1975, Dr. Nancy Van Buren. Our friendship began in 1963 when she was Nancy Meyer and I was Nancy Miller. We were both in the first grade classroom of Miss Verna Kurtz at Jefferson School. I have proof of our early friendship. This is a printed ditto. It's our first grade class list. And you can tell Nancy is important because I circled her name in red and put some stars by it. So I also circled my own name. Nancy was a spunky and inquisitive child. And I think inquisitive is a big word for her. And in junior and senior high, she proved to be a focused and diligent student who always did well in class. But for Nancy, it wasn't enough to just get a good grade. She was really interested in almost any subject matter and would ask questions that no one else would ask, just to understand things more thoroughly. Teachers must have enjoyed having Nancy in class, and she speaks warmly of the teachers who were influential in her formative years. She was a well-rounded student, participating in tennis, volleyball, theater. She was first chair clarinet and band and orchestra, which meant she actually practiced. And like most high school students in the 70s, part-time jobs were part of life, and Nancy was no different. She loved her work as a nurse's aide, taking care of residents at St. Lucas. Even then, as a teenager, she genuinely cared for those adults. After high school, Nancy attended St. Olaf College. She had many academic interests, and I recall that she had trouble deciding on a major. She considered mathematics, nursing, chemistry, biology, all were possible. In the end, she graduated magna cum laude with a degree in biology and a concentration in chemistry. Her inquisitive mind, coupled with study skills honed during her days in Faribault, served her well. She went on to medical school at the University of Minnesota, followed by a residency in pathology and fellowship in blood banking and transfusion medicine. In her career as a hospital-based pathologist and transfusion medical director, Nancy combined her passion for patients with her interest in laboratory medicine. She has spent a lot of time looking through microscopes. Her depth of knowledge never ceases to amaze me, and at the same time, she's still the inquisitive student that I met in first grade. As she eases into retirement, she continues to ask questions that may be key to solving unique medical issues. If you look at her CV, her publications provide a glimpse into the depth of study and knowledge that she draws upon in her work to address unique challenges related to transfusion medicine. And I was thinking about this. I'm going to ask you all, how many of you here tonight, yourself or maybe an immediate family member, have benefited from a blood transfusion, a bone marrow donation, or a stem cell procedure? Raise your hand. Yeah, it's important. We can all be grateful for the inquisitive minds like Nancy's, nurtured through her 13 years at Faribault Public Schools. Nancy met her husband Rick at St. Olaf, and they've been married, I think, almost 44 years. Yeah. They have 3 children, Tori and her husband Josh. They're here tonight. They have 2 children, live in Inver Grove Heights. Eric and his wife Heidi and their 2 children are in Seattle, and Samantha will be completing her PhD at UC Davis next month. Nancy has deep family roots in Faribault, and she maintains ties to the community. Her great-grandfather, Reverend William Meyer, founded St. Lucas, the first hospital in Faribault. And her grandfather, P.F. Meyer, her uncle Robert Meyer, her dad, Dr. Richard Meyer, provided medical care to the community for decades. Nancy has treasured friendships with high school classmates, and she's an integral part of our committee planning our 50-year reunion, which will be in September. We can all be proud of Nancy's life-saving work in transfusion medicine, and I'm so pleased to introduce her tonight. Please join me in welcoming Dr. Nancy Van Buren.
Wow, thank you, Nancy. Wow.
my lifelong friend. I mean, isn't that just amazing? We've known each other, and Miss Balkin in kindergarten, Mrs. Kurtz, Mrs. Best. So anyway, thank you. Thank you everyone tonight. It's a pleasure to be here, and I'll try to keep my remarks fairly brief because I know it's starting to get late. It's truly an honor. I never imagined that one day I'd be standing up here receiving an award from the very place where my journey began. I especially want to thank my husband, Rick, for his unwavering love of support of me and especially our family. It's nice that Tori and Josh are both here tonight. His encouragement and partnership have made everything that I have achieved possible. So thank you, Rick. I'm also grateful to my father. And Nancy, thank you again for that introduction. It's been 50 years. Oh my gosh. Like I graduated from high school in a blink of an eye, you know, things go by, and that's when our father left Faribault. My sister Sue is here too, which is wonderful. So it's wonderful to remain connected with the community. And Faribault is just a place that I treasure as far as a place that I was able to grow up. I'm grateful to my father because he believed in me from the very beginning, and the many mentors, colleagues, friends who have walked alongside me over the years. But before I go further, I'd like to recognize someone very special who is here with us tonight. It's my high school math teacher, Mr. Harvey Schultz. Oh, sure. Right? Some subjects would be great. We have so many wonderful teachers here, but I really wanted to call him out. Some subjects you can't learn just by reading a book, and mathematics is one of them. It's more than memorizing formulas. It's truly understanding the principles and the concepts. And his dedication to his students helped shape many lives, and it's a powerful reminder of the lasting impact of great teachers. In fact, thank you, Mr. Schultz, and thank you to all of the teachers who are here with us this evening, including my sister Sue and my niece Megan. Thank you for being here. Reflecting on those early days reminds me of how much this place shaped who I am. And when I think back to high school, I remember a deep curiosity and a desire to help people, though at that time I wasn't sure how those instincts would take shape. I was fortunate, as Nancy mentioned, to have strong role models in my family. And she mentioned my great-grandfather, Reverend William Meyer, who answered the call that brought him to Faribault, where he helped found St. Lucas Hospital. And that commitment to service inspired my grandfather to pursue a career in medicine, and eventually leading to the establishment of the Meyer Clinic, where he worked with my father and my uncle during the years that we grew up. Do many of you remember the Meyer Clinic here?
Oh, yes.
My father in particular, Dr. Richard Meyer, he believed in me at a time when medicine was not a typical path for women. And I always loved science and math, but when I considered a career in nursing, that's when he first strongly encouraged me to consider becoming a physician. And I didn't know any women physicians at all at the time, so that thought hadn't even occurred to me. He never questioned whether I could do it, but he simply believed in me. And he told me it would be hard work, but deeply gratifying, and that I should never hold myself back for fear of failure. So that encouragement meant everything. And as Nancy mentioned too, thank you, Nancy, another informative experience for me during high school that helped clarify my path was my work as a nurse's aide at St. Lucas Nursing Home, caring for the elderly residents. And I mean, it wasn't glamorous work. It's sometimes humbling, it's sometimes heartbreaking, but it's always deeply human. And it was there that I first saw up close the dignity and compassion at the heart of medicine. So that early exposure to medicine set me on a path that I could never fully imagine back then. And after high school, I stayed close to home, going to St. Olaf College and then the University of Minnesota. And as Nancy mentioned, I specialized in pathology and transfusion medicine. And those are fields that many people haven't heard much about, but they're absolutely vital in modern healthcare. For me, it was the perfect blend of science and medicine. And so as a pathologist, I worked behind the scenes for diagnosis of disease. I spent many hours behind a microscope, looking at tumors, grading and staging cancer, looking at blood smears, looking at leukemia or lymphoma. And those are reports that physicians need to help guide their therapy. And so they kind of hang on to every word. You have to carefully examine everything you do when you're there. And as a transfusion medical director, I helped ensure that patients receive safe and effective blood transfusions. And throughout my 37-year career in Tennessee first and then back in Minnesota, I held leadership roles that helped shape patient care even on a broader scale. I was proud to be co-founder of a marrow donor registry for the National Marrow Donor Program when we lived in Northeast Tennessee, and I volunteered my time as medical director of that program. It's still in existence today, but it's an effort to continue to help connect people that are healthy with people that have serious life-threatening illnesses. Similarly, my work at the Blood Center helped connect healthy community members with those in need of life-saving blood transfusions. And I also had the privilege of serving on regional and national blood bank organizations, giving lectures, writing journal articles, contributing to textbooks to help educate the next generation of doctors and medical laboratory scientists. So while my career in medicine is coming to a close, my desire to serve and connect has remained very alive. And since retiring from my full-time position in the summer of 23, I've continued doing consulting work for Memorial Blood Centers. And I also volunteer with a group of women known as LARC in our communities, Ladies Acts of Random Kindness. Josh's mom actually started the group that I joined, and I love doing that. And also I work with their trained therapy dog and visit at assisted living facilities and libraries where we participate in children's reading program. So watching an older person's face light up as they pet my dog, or seeing a child grow more confident, reading aloud to a calm little furry listener, reminds me that compassion and connection comes in many forms. So to the students here tonight, whether you dream of a career in medicine or art, business, or something entirely different, I want to say this: trust your instincts and don't be afraid to pursue something that feels big or bold or different. Your journey might not look like anyone else's, and that's okay. In fact, sometimes that's often the best kind. And know that what you do matters. Whether you're caring for a patient, solving a problem, teaching somebody something new, or simply showing up with kindness, you are making an impact. And always remember, your roots, your values, and the community that raised you, they go with you wherever life takes you. So with that, I just want to thank you again for this incredible honor. I'm grateful to have grown up here and to have learned here and to be welcomed back here in this way. May we all keep learning, giving, and lifting each other up for a lifetime. Thank you.
I told you we had some doozies this year, didn't we? They were great. After tonight, our honorees continue to be acknowledged as high flyers. If you go to senior high, visit the Hall of Fame. It's just across the counseling offices. And there you'll find we have a plaque, and on that plaque, we have each individual information. And this whole wall, when you walk down, it's like a Hall of Fame. That's right across. Check that out. And then also, these pictures and that plaque are put in the Michael Hansen Auditorium Theater area. So they are honored yet for today and a couple, a whole year coming up until the new ones come up. Okay? Thanks again for coming.